Yes, that's done. Thank you very much. Please.
So I think I can make progress now.
Yeah, please go on.
All right. So as I was speaking, and we know definitely that yes, we are thinking that we have our capacity when it comes to number of people that are working in different sectors of the economy. We have the population. We believe that we are vast and we are well read as a nation. But the R&D personnel specifically that actually reside within the context of what we are discussing today, available data shows that Nigeria is fifth on the continent of Africa, and we are behind South Africa, Senegal, Gabon, Cameroon, and I think the outlook, this data is actually from the AUNEPAD 2010, and I think maybe it might have changed. And I want to suggest that maybe we have actually moved southward because of a lot of emigration of our talent. So Nigeria was third largest producer of scientific research publication between 2005 and 2010. This is impressive in terms of the number of volumes. It comes for improvements judged by the size of the country and increased number of universities. Permit me to actually introduce the sections today that I have, and I think I will be talking from the perspective of what we have done with our nation, experimenting with our nation since 1960. Mostly what we have been able to achieve is to actually experiment and try to play with our nation politically. And we are using politics as a tool of economic advancement. And the result is very clear to everybody today. We've using the different method of governance, military, we have the political system, democracy, regional government, everything. Again, the question I will pose is that, which is part of the challenge of all of us as a nation, that what has been the result? Using politics and centralizing politics as a developmental tool of our economic advancement. Vis-a-vis, now we are looking at saying we want to landscape R&D or want to look at science and technology, science, technology, and innovation to lead our thought process towards economic advancement. I think that is critical. Again, the experimentation of research and development model for sustainable development in modern economy has actually given us chance to actually benchmark, because we've seen countries that are not just using politics to drive their economy, but are being led by science and technology, and the results are very clear. So we can see where they are applying knowledge, where we are actually applying energy. I mean, we are applying what we can have from politics, where they can actually apply the outcomes of science and technology for the advancement of their own economy. So the outcomes and output of R&D and developed nations are obvious, and actually they are tangential to their development, as we can see. And we are talking about economies. In the emerging economy of the world, we know that definitely the languages are changing. Today, we are talking about 5 different or 6 different economy, and it's still counting. We have the brown economy, we have the white economy, we have the blue economy, green economy, the knowledge economy we are talking about, and what we call the circular economy, which is actually leading in the Scandinavians now. Let me say this, let me attempt to discuss some of this economy because of time. And I can say that what we have in Nigeria is a whole lot of about 90% brown economy. And we have around maybe pretty much like 10 to 15% white economy. Blue economy has been 0. Our green economy is something around 20-something percent. And our knowledge economy is just emerging. And when it comes to circular economy, we are 0. I need to say this because Nigeria needs to understand why we need R&D and why we need to actually situate it. Again, before I will finish up with this particular slide, I will try as much as possible to let us understand the difference between a structural tripod of development and the functional tripod of development. In the structural tripod, you're going to be talking about science, technology, and innovation, where you have innovation as the constant variable. Then when you move on to the functional tripod of sustainable development, now you are going to be talking about research development and innovation being a constant variable. At the end of the day, what we are looking for when it comes to economic global competitiveness is that you're going to have research, innovation, and enterprise in this tripod, but The dependent variable in all of this will now become the research, and it's going to be the constant variable. So I think our clear understanding of this, we now see how does the STI synergizes of function become a function when it comes to RDI, and eventually when we have what we call RIE, which is the research innovation enterprise. And by the way, for easy understanding, we need to understand that when you say research and development, the component that is development can be decoupled when it becomes functional into innovation and enterprise. Permit me to actually try as much as possible to look at some translational studies and the models that we have around Rmd ecosystem. And the one that you have on the left side is essentially talking about the ecosystem as envisioned and has been practiced in the Asian world. So you have the research.
We actually cannot see your screen. You have not shared your slide, your screen with us.
Well,
I thought
maybe we are listening. I think most of us are taking note of what he's saying. It's like maybe he's having challenge to get the slides ready.
Let me attempt to see that again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can see it now.
Thank you very much. It's because of a lot of this confusion. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Very much. So understanding
It's
the
okay.
ecosystem, yeah, I think I'm just done with these slides, and then this was the next slide. So I'm actually modeling. I'm trying to see how we want to understand the Rmd ecosystem and some of the translational studies that we did around it. On the left side, you're going to see the ecosystem has been modeled by the Asian tigers and essentially the Indians, and you can see where the research resides, and our research on to innovation to industry, and possibly the education, and the role each of them are actually playing, fundamental research and whatever is being done around research itself. For us to say, if you are talking about serious business of research, you're going to be talking about what happens in your postgraduate studies, where maybe you can even have 90% of the work or 80%, depending on the proportion in your doctorate work that is actually going to research, and what do we do with the outcome of research, including the patent. And in the innovation world, essentially, we are looking at applied research, industrial collaboration, prototype development and testing, and in the industry, mass production, innovative product services, and in education, for you to actually have an ecosystem. When we're talking about the research ecosystem, we need to actually define it and disaggregate and understand that it's not only basic education. Core of it is going to be our higher education, and we need to look at the pool of quality workforce that constitutes our R&D personnel. Remember, I just mentioned the percentage and the number. I mean, the position of Nigeria on the African continent. We are just number 5 behind, despite being number 1 in population. Number 1 in population, number 5 in R&D personnel. So when you move to the right side, you're going to be seeing 2 economies that are running concurrently and supposed to be hand-holding each other. But in here we are in the country, do we even have a research economy? If we have a research economy, are we talking about the resource investment in our R&D? And if that is happening, to what extent? So why are we asking for the one on the right side, which is commercial economy, when we don't have an answer? So landscaping this R&D ecosystem in the country will tell us clearly, why do we have issues about our commercial economy? And we try as much as possible to use different political solutions to solve something that requires scientific advancement. So we try a lot of things, and we're actually wasting a lot of resources trying to rejig what is not there. We want to rejig a commercial economy that is not research-based. I think it's going to be a waste of time. And that is what we are saying we cannot continue, because we are not talking about a model that is from heaven. We are talking about model that we can see even in our closer, I mean, in our border and countries that are very close to us on the continent of Africa. The fundamental of technology breakthrough is key, and you can see how it was situated. And for you, if you can have a lot of breakthrough, you're going to have increased sales and profits. What that one is telling us is that you can only be competitive when you have breakthroughs. I mean, why am I going to be wearing a cloth, for example, that I know it doesn't belong to this generation? It's no more trending. And if somebody has have a breakthrough on what is new that we need to wear, and it's going to replace clothes around the world today. People will jump on that. So, and again, when you look at the bottom line, you're going to see the level of development and versus the resources, and you can see the role that the academia is playing, and the small businesses, the investor, and the industry. Of more importance to us is for us to understand that at the side of academia, what we need to be working on is inventing and making sure that we have a lot of discovery. Each of the institutions of higher learning should be able to interface clearly in the value of despair, or what we call the value of death of, the value of death of any idea with the small businesses, because they're supposed to be the one that will take that idea or the invention from value of death to the point that investor is going to be looking at it and the industry can actually uptake it. If you don't look at that clearly, that our role as academia, for example, is for us to actually be going into discovery, and after the discovery and you do some technology demonstration at the maximum, then you leave the other things to the small businesses and investors. If you say you want to do everything all together, it's going to be tantamount to a waste of time. We do that a lot, and we are wasting a lot of resources around that in the country on our time, and it will never give us results. Let me go into resourcing the R&D ecosystem, which is essentially part of our new which was being led by what was it called? The Swansea University from the UK. Part of the questions that we need to actually define as a country is clearly who are the actors in our R&D ecosystem. As at this morning, part of the report was telling us that yes, it is FMST, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, that has the policy right and everything. During the conversation, before I just came for this meeting, just about 30 minutes ago, we realized that people in the private sector actually trooping into the Ministry of Digital Economy to actually do a lot of things with them, more than the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. Here we have, again, TED Fund is doing a lot in the Ministry of Science, the Ministry of Education, and then a couple of others. And then we see that even the Ministry of Niger Delta, a lot of bodies are actually, look at the PTDF, they are doing a lot of things. And for us as a country, we've not seen that coordination and R&D leadership that will give everybody a sense of direction at policy level, so that essentially we are going to know that what is happening here, we need not to be wasting the limited resources by reinventing the wheels. We might even be duplicating. This is happening among ourselves in the university system, where even within departments or faculties, where some people are going to be doing the same research, and they are within the same university systems, and they don't even know. So, these are things that we actually need to provide the leader. We need to have a standard leadership that is going to guide the R&D interventions. And we look at the other actors as the faculty members at postgraduate school, the technical, non-technical laboratory, observatory and resource center administrators, the postgraduate students. Postgraduate students across the world are essentially the critical actors that actually spawning new development and breakthrough, because they are fresh, they are energetic, and through mentorship, they are being guided to do the right thing. For us in this country, part of the critical things that are needed, that are missing, has to do with mentorship. We do teaching, we do a bit of training, we don't mentor, or we do a very limited mentoring. So for us, we look at people like the visiting professors, the researchers, and the scholars that are supposed to be visiting our institution. Permit me to say that that's very, it's actually southward in this country, because I don't see many of the enabling environment that we assist or we attract a visiting professor or a researcher to many of our departments, and it's not happening. And you can see exodus of Nigerians actually looking for this position that are even within our academic system. This has to change, and these are the things that makes the critical resourcing of R&D ecosystem in other countries functional. Non-resident allied human resources personnel supporting the postgraduate school, as the case may be, and the collaborators and partners. How many collaborations do we have? How many of them are functional? Who are the drivers of this? And I think if you go to many institutions, I want to say critically that many of them does not even know the number of collaborative agreements they have signed, not to say how functional are they. So we need to actually look at that. Ecosystem, resourcing it further, we are looking at infrastructure. For us as a country, again, the belief and our mentality generally has to do with the kind of economy where we have found ourselves, which is the brown economy. In the brown economy, we have been disruptive to the environment. We are actually making money. Let me say this critically, and I mean, especially that our dependence on the petroleum sector of the economy is a signal that we are actually playing in the brown economy. So, and you can know the contribution of petroleum to our GDP. So that will tell us the percentage of our economy that is brown, because as you mine, you're actually destroying the environment. I mean, how can we reconcile the issue of gas flaring in this country? And we have gas plant now that doesn't have gas to actually fire, to produce power for us as a country. When they were designing many of these plants, they are not considering the inputs and raw material that will be required, that is being wasted. Again, how about our gray infrastructure? We know naturally Nigerians are good, so but whatever you call your gray infrastructure, gray matter infrastructure for that matter, which is your talent, your brain, has to be harnessed, has to be nurtured, and has to be developed. How do we have to have a net loss? I think that's going to be part of my conclusion today. On my concluding slide, you're going to see the trend when it comes to immigration of talent in this country. The postgraduate college building is a critical infrastructure, teaching and research. We need to look at laboratory, digital tools and ICT infrastructure. How many of our institutions or our ecosystem where R&D reside in this country have 100% digital intensity that you can actually browse anywhere? So you need to actually grab with a lot of things: creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and soft skill, and intellectual property and desk. I want to believe that's one of the critical issues, and I think I'm going to speak to that later. Resourcing further, you're going to be looking at what kind of funds are supposed to be available for you to say you are actually playing the R&D the way other people are playing it in the world. How are you going to be playing in that ecosystem when you are actually looking at the global context? Conventional funding, we used to know about bursary awards. I don't know, maybe they are still having states that are still giving bursary now. And to what extent can those bursary carry out R&D functions? We'll know about grants, which is essentially part of what TED Fund does in terms of NRF and IBR. They are essentially the known grants in the country. We have some interventions that are just coming from the CBN. We have some intervention from, I think, NNLG. Some very little. Where is the coordination? Can anybody tell us today, this is the volume of grant that is available per annum for R&D in this country? Again, when you look at 200 million people, and you look at NRF grants of, say, 7.5 billion coming out from TED Fund, if you do that mathematics on per capita basis of researcher, you are going to see that is abysmally low. Then we look at scholarship. So do we still have people that are giving scholarship in this country? How many endowment chairs do we have in our university? The philanthropy that are actually bringing out money for us to have a palliative economy. Then what has been their contribution? And what do we do with our international engagement and collaboration? So these are things that we need to actually look at. And finally, we need to not just talk about problem, we need to talk about some of the solutions to this problem. And we are looking at innovative funding models that we have today for support and development of R&D ecosystem across the world. We have crowdfunding model. We have the bond models that we actually be looking at green bond for some specific sector of the economy, the corporate bond, and what you even have as a sukuk has been modeled in other countries. Because you understand with me that for postgraduate education, in other climes, you see some of them, there are people actually on loan. When they are on loan financially, they are, I mean, for them to support the study and do the right thing, then they can actually make sure that they have a bond with their institution. Some of that bond is being bonded into the financial inclusion, depending on the kind of money that they use. I have a lot of people talking about corporate social responsibility has been advised, but where are those corporate social responsibility going? As a consumption nation, a lot of this still go into consumption. I mean, how do you define when you have a pause for corporate social responsibility that is being looted? I mean, essentially, that's going to tell you again that we have any time that you're supposed to have this for development, you have challenges around it. digital transformation platform of collaborative land sensing waivers. We can have that, and when you have one, you can actually be an up for a nation on a lot of activities that you are doing, and there's going to be a way of generating income to any R&D practitioner in the ecosystem, intellectual property exchange and trade, and I think that's one of the big non-tangible capital that is being moved around in the world now for all those people that play around that sector. Then we have the issue of open science and journal, cost saving, and highly impactful. Many of the institutions in this country are not actually looking at that direction, and they might not even understand the practitioner in the R&D sector. Then we have mass online open course and the Commonwealth of Learning. These are online platforms that you can be making $1, less than $1, some of them free, and you can actually generate a lot of income to actually resource your R&D ecosystem where you have found yourself. Permit me to now actually go into our hypothesis for this particular study that we have been conducting to make sure that we reshape the trajectory of our nation. We agree that what we have mentioned according to our own understanding, but more fundamentally, our hypothesis for this particular experimentation has been that Nigeria can be retooled towards sustainable development and global competitiveness, leveraging R&D. That's an hypothesis. And scientifically, we are supposed not to be biased, and there's no prejudice about that. Then the second hypothesis we have that is going to be competing with the first hypothesis is that Nigeria can be great using political and economic palliative measures as a solution to combat the emerging developmental challenges. Again, maybe that's where we are, or maybe that's the tool we are using now. But we have two controls for this particular experiment. The first one is the positive control. And the positive control has to do with this Brazilian model. Why we're actually looking at Brazil for a positive control is because we share similarities when it comes to population, size, and some of the climatic factors are actually similar. And we can actually benchmark our advancement in knowledge, technology, including some specific areas like agriculture with what is going on in Brazil. Then we have the negative control that you can say, hey, you can't compare this with Nigeria. That is the UAE, Dubai. In terms of population, very small, and they're actually looking at innovative development model. So the first one that has to do with Brazil is actually taking it gradually the way we are doing because of their size and population. While the small one that is Dubai is actually not looking at.
Somebody, you should be able to say sorry. Even a baby.
Hello.
Not a grown-up person.
Hello.
Please go ahead. I think.
Thank you. I thought. Okay.
When they feel like they want.
The negative control that we're talking about, they are not even going organically. They are looking at solution because the leader of that country said the issue of Dubai is an emergency issue. And it's not a matter of saying they need to actually develop later. The development must be now. And in making it now, they've actually gone on their developmental model. So those are the experimentation, those are our null hypotheses. And for us to move on in this particular study, we look at that and for me, we move ahead again to see that, okay, can we talk about some contextual framework to see that maybe the readiness of the country to actually get landscaped when it comes to the R&D ecosystem. Again, like I mentioned, we have over 400, not even 300 tertiary institutions in Nigeria today. I think precisely about 460 something. And these institutions, if they are catalysts to R&D development or they are practitioners R&D ecosystem, what you are going to see is that they are located in 36 states of the Federation. So nobody is at disadvantage when it comes to the R&D ecosystem from the beginning. Ab initio, our state institutions, federal institutions, and every state, like I mentioned initially, because of our location around the GMT, is blessed with one abundant mineral resources or the other. So again, we have a fair share on that. And when you look at the case, for example, TED Fund, about what they are doing in terms of funding of infrastructural development, it is based on the beneficiary institutions across the 36 states of the Federation. Today, for the past 10 years of TED Fund, from inception to date, they have about 30,000 physical infrastructural projects. And the ongoing project as today is about 10,000. And for all of that, The funding for the National Research Fund and projects that is actually ongoing as of today from TED Fund is about 300 in the 774 local government of the country, meaning that possibly there are some local government that has none since the inception of TED Fund. And we know how things were characterized in terms of power supply to our institutions. And we have limited academic excellence because there are challenges. We have a lot of infrastructural vacuum when it comes to the digital infrastructure. And we have a lot of digital skill gap. So we know a lot of things that are not balanced, but again, all these problems are cross-cutting. It is not being biased, and we can see that this has led to us having a lot of unemployed, non-employable, or underemployable people that are around us. Permit me to actually reference this data for us to understand why the model we have been using or our hypothesis that we have put. Yes.
You have 3 minutes, please.
Okay.
Thank
so
you,
maybe some of these hypotheses that we put forward is going to be on the positive trajectory or negative. As of today, we're talking about 33% unemployment rate, 28% underemployment rate, 3.4 job losses due to lockdown, 35.5% debt to GDP ratio, and some of the quarters we've seen that each of the, I think Q1, Q2 of last year and part of this year, we've used about 96% or 90% and above of our national income to actually settle debt. So we have 24% of 2021 budget for debt servicing already. So these are critical things that we say, okay, should we need to be talking about this? And we have this composite R&D success rate model that we will have loved to see, because people will come back to us and say, hey, when you're talking about R&D, what has been the success story? How has it been around the world? I think this data is something that we can leverage, and up to 2018, we can see how that one has been. And I think that will be instructive for us to take a decision as a country. And again, we've done this, and this courtesy of some of the new work that we do at our technical coordination team of RDSC, where we leverage and look at what is the amount of billions in dollars or amount of investment in R&D, and we consider the first 15 countries of the world. And then we look at what is their percentage of that spending in their GDP and what is the business sector of each of those countries are contributing. This is a product of data mining anyway. It's not something that we just handpick somewhere. And I think for us, we can actually interrogate this. As of today, we are talking about amount of spending in R&D in $1 billion in the United States of America is $476 billion US. And our total GDP as a country, I think, is around 440 something billion US. So meaning that our entire GDP is what is being used in the United States for R&D alone. And then we come to the list among them, which is around 16 billion US. You can see that even our recovery from looted funds is more than that. And the application is what becomes a challenge. Now move forward and see that portion of the R&D expenditure as a percentage of the GDP. As of today, Nigeria is talking about 0.02 or 0.013%. And this data I'm quoting is even for 2017. So meaning that a lot of work has to be done in the second column for you to understand that, yes, this is the portion of your money. Now, look at the business sector contribution. Do we have business sector contributing to our R&D spending? These are part of the things that we are looking at, and we need to actually look at it. Now, landscaping Nigeria R&D, the case one I have has to do with the patent registry, because we actually have cases of what has to be done and what has been done so far. You agree with me that even in the academia, the patenting in this country is another thing that might not be giving us a sleepless night. That might be giving us a sleepless night. In Nigeria, our patent is actually underperforming. In the institutions, we know what that one means. No business person will come and take your invention if you don't have the protection of right of that invention. Nigeria being ranked as 123 out of 129 among all the countries, and the 26 out of 30 in Africa is not acceptable. Nigeria recorded only 1.1% resident patent application in billions and ranking 113th in 131 countries in 2020. Again, talking about economic forum, World Economic Forum data, 111 out of 119, and in sub-Saharan Africa, 16 out of 21, you know, telling us clearly that patenting in Nigeria is something that must be looked into. And then maybe when I get to some of my conclusions, my conclusive remark today, I'm going to make that one clear as part of the recommendation. Improvement in Nigerian innovation governance can help us to actually address this, and that's the solution. And then we can actually move from a low patent country to an high output patent country. Again, when you look at the issue of data, which is another critical area that we need to look at, that's our case 2. And when we are doing this landscaping, we look at that a lot of information that comes out of this country actually are not something that are data-driven or is evidence-based, particularly from the political class. There are reckless statements that have been made that is actually having impact on this country, both locally and in the international community. So we can't continue that way. And that is why it is very critical that almost every aspect of our economy require R&D that can actually fix those things. So, and you know, Nigerian pools of research have been significantly reduced to the recent rise in emigration of educated, skilled, and professional. How do you reconcile? That is according to IOM 2016.
Kindly, so I kindly round up. I know we will have a second visit to this issue. Please round up.
I'll round up. Okay, I'll round up with case 2 anyway, so that the other cases can be presented subsequently. Thank you for pandemic. Almost 200 Nigerian doctors, their own health system, and because what is available in terms of available for them there, they are ready to leave the country. And we have gap in reliable data, and that is making the areas of STEM, entrepreneurship and management, all of which are essential to innovation, to be lacking. R&D data are needed for policies, formulation, implementation, evaluation, and governance. Currently, there are gaps in the indicator and metrics, as well as in the assessment and measurement of R&D outputs and outcomes in the country. Capabilities and data gap require urgent attention. On that note, I will pause today, and I think, like I mentioned, I'm thinking I'll be able to round it up. But again, this is going to be in series, like I've actually pleaded with the director, and I hope, if I'm obliged, we are going to take it to a good destination over about a 6-7 series. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You have justified. You can stop sharing. You have actually, by my estimation, stop sharing.
So I'm trying to get to that, sir.
You have actually justified your appointment as Associate Professorial Fellow of the Center. I can tell you that, and I believe the founder of this center is with us. I can tell you that in the last 1.5 years, this has been the most enriching presentation by any of the fellows that we have appointed. It is a non-stipendiary opportunity for us to flower, for us to share knowledge, and listening to you despite my technical issues. And by the way, the center is not about Tijani. I keep saying that. But I thank profusely those who reach out, from Professor Lani to Professor Sogolo, our Professor Emeritus Sogolo. Baba was calling me, Mrs. Alabi, Mrs. Ashbari, Mr. Gege, and a host of others. I sincerely appreciate. Please do not call me. Someone is trying to call. If you don't call this hour, that means you are not joining us. I don't know why you will call the host of a program when you know this is the hour for it. So don't distract us. You know, some of these people I may have to just delete them from my contact. But having said that, don't let us be distracted. I thank you, and I thank all of you for being a sustained stakeholder, a high stakeholder, because despite the technical glitch, I could see that even the former vice chancellor wanted to be the host. Mrs. Alabi shared, and I said, please go ahead. That was, you know, some other. But let me quickly capture some of the things you have said before I allow at least 2 or 3 people to speak, and they will go in this order: Professor Abdallah Adamu, and then Professor Muni Olua Olani. But before they take over, let me share with you. You've talked so much about the relevance, and there's no doubt the relevance of R&D. You've also mentioned the fact that we must, you know, do more, both leaders and followers. But within the context of marrying well, in my opinion, marrying well, and I'm emphasizing that, the STEM and the non-STEM, to actualize our vision and mission. The transformation of Nigeria will depend on a sustainable, God-fearing leadership in terms of research and development, in terms of mentoring that you mentioned, and we can't you know really fault it. But there's an area that you technically, or maybe in the second part, will share. But let me share it because we're on the same page, and that is how we met. You and the associate Professor Chinwe gave me that opportunity as a humanity guy to work with you on a COVID-19 research consortium. And we are all learning, we're marrying together the humanities, the social sciences, and the mainstream science, which is so, you know, uncommon. It is uncommon. Most of our leaders will say, well, it's all about STEM. But in the developed world, they marry well the non-STEM and the STEM, and then come out with solution that you have, you know, advocated for. We thank you for that. You also maybe tactically did not mention some of the things that TEDFund is doing that I happen to be at the main center, the Abinga, you know, without sounding overblowing my own contribution. And that is the signature memorandum of understanding between TEDFund and Morgan State University, which is so rare. Apart from those things that Professor Bogoro was able to accomplish in terms of reducing the cost of training majorly STEM and some number of non-STEM, we now see that for the first time, the first cohort of postdoc will be going to Morgan, right? That is something that, you know, we need to talk about in terms of infrastructural development, because infrastructural development is both technical and non-technical, is both human and non-human, is both physical and non-physical. And of course, the major thing that I think I should say before I allow Professor Adamu to take over and make his comment is the PhD training that was started by TEDFund last year. Okay, it cut across the nation. It represents all the ethnicity. It represents all the tertiary institutions, from polytechnics to College of Education to the universities. And by fall 2021, this August, we have, as of today, about 45 of them already admitted, PhD, going for the same training. So again, on behalf of the center, I thank you so immensely for this. And I can promise all of us that, as usual, we are recording this, we will share the video record, and then I will make sure that you get the PowerPoint presentation. And definitely our presenter will be back with us for the second round or a roundtable. At this point, Professor Adamu, please kindly unmute, and then Professor Muniolua will follow. I see people raising hands because of my technical issues. If you are raising your hand, just follow in that order. Please unmute yourself. But if your background is so noisy, wait until you are able to, the floor or the virtual floor is free for you to speak. Thank you very much. And I'm going to mute myself now.
No, you're going to mute yourself. Thank you very much, Director. I'm very happy to see that in today's audience we have top scientists like Professor Isapagi, who is the Director of Center for Renewable Energy Research in Bayero University, Kano. Although a lot of people will probably associate him with us leadership, but he is one of the best, finest scientists that we have from northern Nigeria. So Professor Nasr, you are welcome to the forum. The first time I'm seeing you actually, and I'm very happy that we have been able to come.
Your volume.
My observations are.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Please, can we have more volume?
Can you hear me now? You want me to talk louder?
Yeah. Yes, sir. We want you to be louder.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Like I said, I just noticed that. Yeah, I just noticed that Professor Nasr Isafage is here, and Professor Nasr Isafage is the Director of Renewable Energy Center in Bayero University, Kano. He's a world-class scientist, a physicist, a world-class scientist, and but a lot of people will associate him with the ASU leadership during the Goodluck Jonathan regime. And he has actually been at the forefront of getting us a lot of things into the university. So Professor Nasr Isafage, you're welcome to our center, and I'm really happy. This is the first time I'm seeing you here. My comments are
thank you very much, Prof.
About the presentation, about the political economy of research and development. Yeah. Okay. My observation is about the political economy. What we have seen in this presentation so far seem to have looked at the general schematics of Rmd Ecosystem, which is just fine. But as an empiricist and a scientist myself, I would have loved to see specific data-driven examples of the political economy of Rmd Ecosystem. We can see the relationship between variables, independent variables, and dependent. For instance, what is the national research policy? Let's begin with that. Does Nigeria have a national research policy? If we have a research policy, how effective is that research policy? That's number one. Number two, I do know that NUC has directed all universities to have the directors of research and advancement or directors of research and development. How many are there and how many are actually active? So I would have loved to see a landscaping of the political economy of R&D in Nigeria. What I have seen so far seems to have been a theoretical and, in fact, philosophical overview of what should be, not what is. And what I would have loved is to see what is, because with that, I would be able to determine whether I'm achieving my maximum capacity as a researcher. Nation is achieving its maximum capacity as a research-based nation, or whether it is not. And then examples of the relationship between patients, that we have, the invention that we have done, the invention that we want to do, and national development. And that I community of researchers, rather than just simply theoretical scientists just sitting down in our desks and they're simply postulating things, but doing actual research. So in my view, when we come to the round table, there might be a need to be a little bit focused on data-driven processes that will indicate the efficiency and the efficacy of research policies in the country. Because he asked a lot of questions and I didn't see many of the answers that he rhetorically asked. And I think this is, I will just simply stop here because there are a lot of people who have other comments to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And let me quickly say that definitely there will be a roundtable. And let me also say this, that one of the parting gifts by Professor Abdallah Adamu is to set up a sustainable R&D at National Open University of Nigeria. For being modest, and interestingly, this was shared by Professor Mafiana, and the subcommittee was actually chaired by the current Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters. And I was a member of that subcommittee and learned a lot from that renowned scientist who is currently the VC of NOUN. I believe under his leadership in the last 2-3 months, he's been the leader of NOUN, and I can speak to a specific. He has really taken it to the higher level. And I think we are going beyond theories, concept to actual practice. Again, if your hands are up because of my technical difficulty, you will speak after Professor Moniolua. So Professor Moniolua Olani, please go ahead if you are still with us. And then Professor Sogolo and those two. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. I'd like to just make a few points. My thanks to the presenter and appreciation to the center for bringing up this topic at this time. My first observation is that Dr. Popola mentioned that we have several universities and asked the question, how many of our universities can be called research universities? I'd like to start from there. How many of our institutions, like Professor Abdallah said, have institutional policies on research? How much time do we devote to research? For instance, in our institution, we can say time for research is virtually zero. People that do research go out of their way to struggle to create time because they know that they must be promoted. So what efforts are institutions putting in place to ensure that quality time is devoted to research? We must start looking at that nationally, bringing up policies that will ensure that we actually do research. A lot of times researches are done that are not multidisciplinary, and then we want development. We as higher institutions, we are supposed to lead the nation in development through multidisciplinary research for development. And I think we also need to start looking at how to build capacity, focus on that. Let's plan it. It doesn't just happen. And finally, mentorship. Mentorship is not something that just comes. Many people, err in that. They say, well, because I am a professor, I'm just in the institution, I'm mentoring. No, we must have a structure. We must have institutional policies on how we want to mentor, how we want to ensure that the system is sustained when we have gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Moniolua Olani, the immediate past Dean of Science. She reinvoked the need for national research policy, but more importantly, the fact that we need time and more incentives to actually carry out these researches, not primarily for promotion. And that has been the situation.
Hello, Chair. Hello, Chair. Hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
I think you can just go ahead. Just go ahead and talk because the slot was.
Well, I am Nasir Fage Isa, Director, Center for Renewable Energy Research. I want to start by thanking Prof. Abdallah for the good comments, but I will say that Bayero University, Kano is the only person to date who has been able to achieve having professorial position in two different fields of profession, two different professional fields. So you can see that it's a very quiet achievement. Thank you very much.
Looks like Professor Fage's internet is also disrupted. Maybe somebody else who wants to make a comment could go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Hear me? Let me know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On the presentation, I want to quickly inform that as far back as 1992, the agreement ASU signed with government, the same agreement that gave birth to TED Fund, then ETF, in that agreement, we also agreed with government that government will ensure that all companies operating in Nigeria will establish research centers in our universities. That is really the same thing as the triple helix model recently. I think that if we have had a government that really cares to implement that component of the agreement, probably we will be at par with the Chinese. And also the presentation indicated that there are two possible models, R&D models, that we can look into, the one from Brazil and then the one from United Arab Emirates. I want to quickly inform that two countries that are referred to, they will achieve development through the model mainly because of the leadership of that countries. Brazil was is the king of that but if you also look at it, we are talking about China, you know,
The sound is disrupted.
Sorry, I was out a little while ago. I don't know whether Professor Zuru and Professor Fage have spoken. If they have, we will take Dr. Akimba Mijo.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I stand on existing protocol. My name is Yemi Akimba Mijo. Apologies, I'm in traffic. But this has been a very interesting session, listening to the speaker. And I just want to pick on two things. I want to pick on two things. The first keyword that I would like to speak to is the use of the word ecosystem and how we see that playing out for the good or for the worse in the context of Nigeria's economic development. Now, where R&D is concerned, when you talk about the ecosystem, it is the harnessing of every single organic element in that system that is being defined. And it brings me to actually ask the question, where is the human resource that should power Nigeria's R&D? I've heard a lot about the policy, which is very good and well placed, but no matter how good the policies may be, without harnessing efficiently the human resource capacity, we will still be going around in circles. The speaker made allusion to the issue of Brazil, which is a country that I have also studied very well. And I will add to that Cuba, and a far north would be China. Now, if you look at the case of Brazil and Cuba, without any fear of contradiction, you hardly can find Brazilian Cuban. It is near impossible that you find Cuban or Brazilian scientists in diaspora. But when you look at Nigeria's scenario, Nigerian scientists and researchers are doing extremely well, world class. Citizens to step out of Cuba is that you are trained with Cuban resources and you will put back into that system. And these two countries we talk about, Cuba and Brazil, they have very high rate of return on science, and their development is quite good. So when we talk about Professor Olani was speaking to the issue of national policy, I think we need to do a deeper introspection. And not to take too much time, but my last point would be that, good as this session has been, I hope there will be an optic mechanism. In other words, all these points that we're talking about, who is listening at the next level? Who is going to pick them and say, yes, I need to do something, and how does this contribute into the mainstream? Thank you very much, and once again, have a good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Not too sure whether that was Professor Zuru or Professor Fage. Okay. So let's listen. There was one hand up. That will be the last intervention. And then we can
good morning, Prof.
Good morning, sir.
And other participants. Let me join the previous speakers in congratulating the center for organizing this meeting, as well as the presenter for his work. Actually, some of my issues have been raised by Nasser Fage and the last speaker, but more specifically, I want to go to the issue of Brazil. When he put up the slide where he was comparing the contribution of business community to the R&D, and comparing the R&D to the GDP, I noticed that Brazil was nil in terms of contribution of the business community. Is that for one particular year in question, or is it over time? Because this will essentially negate the principle of the triple helix if the business community, which I will put as the industry, is not contributing to the funding of R&D in Brazil. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akinbamijo.
Yep.
Dr. Akinbamijo, just 10 seconds, please.
Oh, I already spoke.
Oh, you already spoke. Okay, because I was out, technical issue. So, please, Dr. Popola, you have the floor so that we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the director and the chair, for this. And I think let me sincerely firstly appreciate people that came with me from my constituency of Research and Development Standing Committee. Center, you'll have seen some new faces today, as it was alluded to. And let me especially recognize them. The first one is Professor Fage. Professor Fage actually is a member of RDSC in energy sector, former ASU president, and a scintillating scientist. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Yemi Akinbamijo the executive director of a forum of agricultural research on the continent of Africa and technical arm of the African Union. He's based in Ghana. Thank you very much for finding time to come and join your brother as he presents today. Professor Abdallah Zuru, sir, you have been everywhere with us. Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate you. We were together yesterday. You find time to be here today. And the host of RDSC member that I'm not, actually it's because it was shared on the standing committee platform of the Third Fund Research and Development Standing Committee that you see all these new faces. And it's for me as an associate prof in this center to actually attract value to the center. That's a strategic way of doing that. So I believe that subsequently, when you have your engagement and it speaks to some of the issues we are considering at RDSC, I will continue to share with them and they can actually join the center in making it better. So that's to the director. Permit me to quickly respond to some of the issues that were raised. Professor, okay, I think the director started by talking about our achievement in TED Fund and some other things and that are ongoing, including MSU agreement. Dr. Akibamijo will tell you about FARA too, which I'm the one that chaired the steering committee. And I have actually 45 slides and I was told when it was only 16. So I was actually doing the philosophical background for us to being on a journey together. I think that was what Professor Abdallah was not getting by actually raising some of those questions. You can see people that come with me from a standing committee of research and development in Nigeria. No, actually, we have gone beyond that. But really, let me be responsive to some of the issues that he raised. I think for us, there is a lot of specific data sets that we have. And I was actually supposed to conclude by saying 85% of our GDP was representative in the thematic groups that we have. We have about 13 thematic groups ranging from agriculture, in fact, more detail, not even looking at R&D as a part. We have disaggregated it. And what I intend to do going forward with this center is to come on this platform and use it to actually present some of the data mining activities that are ongoing currently on my desk as a researcher in development, finance now, or in an intervention agency. Permit me to say that I have my background in science, and I've been saying why you saw the issue of hypothesis is for you to look at the scope. Every project under science is scoped. I'm not talking about everything in the world. I'm just comparing the data set of what we can actually see, a model of Brazil and the UAE. There are all other models, including China, United States, a lot in the world. But if I don't scope it, I will not be able to come to a logical conclusion. And the scientists among us will ask me, so tell us, what is the scope of this study? So it's for me, a study that will continue to engage on the data across the world and see how we can bring value to our country. So if it sounds philosophical, it's essentially the beginning of a journey that we are going. I have 4 cases. Today, I was just talking about intellectual property and data gap. There are other 2 cases I was not being opportune to mention. I will respectfully request the director to actually quickly look at your schedule and see how we can continue this journey with you. I said it clearly.
It is granted.
I said it clearly from the beginning that, honestly speaking, if I want to look at the data mining, in the next 15 months, I will have something to talk about because the deep research. We are not just talking about theory. So that settles that case. Then Professor Abdullah talked about Director of Research, National Research Policy, National Development. I think all of these are things that we have actually considered. For the Directorate of Research that has been established, you can see what TED Fund is doing. I don't want to start by praising TED Fund today. It's because there is going to be a lot of things that we dovetail to the activities of TED Fund. But when we are talking about research policy, innovation policy, and all other development platforms, the National Research and Development Foundation that is upcoming and is going to be legislated upon by the Law of National Assembly through an executive bill, being championed by Professor Bogoro under his leadership in TED Fund. We address all of this. It is something that has been discussed at the plenary of Research and Development Standing Committee that has been working for over 9 months. And that is part of the inspiration we have to be discussing landscaping this particular issue. Professor Muni Oluwa Olani, thank you very much, ma, for understanding the perspective and the concept. I don't want to say much because your approach is scientific. So I know definitely you are specific on some of those things that you mentioned. The issue of R&D in the university, institutional policy, and because the director will agree with me, in the US, not only that is all these roles are being divided by hours, the payments actually reflect it. And your designation and nomenclature in the university actually speaks to it. If you're a research professor, you might never be teaching. You can have 90% to 10% teaching. You can, that is what we are talking about. And until when we get to that, how will somebody say, I want to commit myself to research, which is not going to be the basis for payment of my salary and my promotion? Why? So, and that is what Madam is talking about. So for people that understand the concept and the background, definitely we are going to find a nexus in making sure that there are reforms across the system. Let us know how many teaching professors we have. Let us know how many research professors we have. Let us know how many of them that are in both research and what percentage. Let it be clear. And let people have their choices to say, hey, at this stage of my life, I'm no more teaching. I want to concentrate more, 70% on research, 30% on teaching. I want to be speaking to postgraduates. And that's what I did when I came back from the US. I told them in the University of Abuja, I said, give me postgraduate students. All these undergraduates, 600 in the class, I can't speak to them. They can't understand me. I can't be talking and they will be playing games. Give me only 5-10 students at PhD and master's level that I can speak to and make more impact. Again, we have different energies and scope and training. So we need to actually look at this as a country, not just coupling people, academia generally. Where do you specialize? So thank you very much for raising that, sir. And then for issue of building of capacity, as we move on, you get to see part of the ASTD activity of TED Fund. How many people, percentage that were PhD before we came in with that program? Like you mentioned, how many people are on bench work? How many people are on postdoc? What is the percentage we have in terms of PhD people in the university system now? How many of them are having entrepreneurial skills? What is our position when it comes to the number of PhD on the continent and world over? These are kind of the data sets you're going to be seeing going forward. And it's not a data that was copy and paste. It is a serious data mining work that is ongoing. So for me, it's something that we need to speak to. And you mentioned something critical, issue of mentorship. The first role of any serious professor, if you have been pronounced even just an associate professor, is for you to actually recalibrate your brain to look at more of mentorship than teaching. I belong to the Corporate Institute of Mentor Chartered and I'm a fellow, and that's why maybe I may appreciate what mentorship is all about. So you mentioned it, and if professors are not mentoring, who are going to replace us? Who are going to replace you? These are questions that we need to start asking. And then we will now come back tomorrow and be complaining about the laboratory is shut down because there was no leadership. Teaching is not mentorship. People ask to actually see that, yes, there are roles. I mean, they need to see some roles they want to model in you. They just don't tag you role model. What are they modeling? If today, what we have in our system in terms of employment and people that have graduated, what they are modeling around are what they copy from our professors, then we have failed. Because the reality is speaking and is standing on everybody's faces now. So really, what we want them to become, we need to be able to show them in a way that they will understand, not a classroom setting. Mentorship is beyond that. Thank you very much for raising that. That one is doing a lot about, with the Centers of Excellence. Part of the core goal of TED Center of Excellence is mentorship. And I think as I proceed in this journey, I'm going to talk about that too. Professor Fage, thank you very much. You mentioned the issue of a UAE and Brazil model. Yes, like I said, it's just for the scoping of this. I'm going to mention other models as I move on, if they need be. Then the triple helix, I'm happy that it has been an agreement of ASU. And what we have as the report of RDSC now, ASU is actually bringing it, the effort of TED Fund, documentation into the negotiating table, again, to revamp it. And if that is done, there's going to be to the benefit of everybody. Dr. Akimbami, the EDSA, thank you very much for issue of ecosystem. We understand that ecosystem, and we know that R&D is situating in a particular ecosystem in the country. If we don't understand the ecosystem, we will not be able to actually talk about coordination and leadership. It's going to become a problem. And the silos are going to be created all over the way we have it. And that is what we are debriefing. All the fault lines must be collapsed into one, and we have one. So the ecosystem we are going to emphasize when we finish the cases. We are going to appreciate what we are able to do. We are not saying it's going to be 100% perfect. And the issue of human resources, like I said, my conclusive slide today, I call it consequential conclusion. You will have seen the trend of net migration across the world and see what is happening to your country and what is happening in US and China. And now compare and let us see if we are actually managing our talent or we are not. Then what will happen next? I think the director of the center will speak to that, maybe as part of his conclusive remark. All this idea, everything we are putting on table, what will happen to it? Prof is asking for that so that all these key findings, what is going to happen? Is it going to end here? So maybe when he's giving his concluding remark. Then Professor Zulu, thank you very much. That data on Brazil was not available. It's not that it doesn't exist, but we cannot concretize that data and we cannot come on this platform to share a data that has not been validated. So the BRD for Brazil, which is business expenditure in R&D for Brazil, for that 10 years of our consideration was not consistent. That is why we put not available, not zero. There are contributions here and there, but you can see me not putting zero, I put not available, because it's not a data that we are able to validate and purify. So that is the issue around that. All in all, thank you very much. I think those are my responses to all of this, and I hope we'll take this one further together and then we get to a logical conclusion. The director, I hereby submit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Popola. I think he deserves a round of applause. For the first time, we have exceeded, our time slot. Apologies, and I believe Baba Sogolo will understand with us because he has always mentored us to keep to time. When we say 1 hour, 1 hour. When we say 2 hours, 2 hours. And then when we say it's 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock is now 1:05. I believe this has been an enriching meeting. Definitely we will have the presenter to come back. But let me, before I round up specifically, thank the first cohort of TED Fund postdoc fellows that will be leaving the shore of Nigeria and coming to Baltimore in another 1 month or 2. We thank you. All of them are present. They know Dr. Popola, and they actually appreciate all his effort and his mentoring. I appreciate them too. So we thank you. We thank you very much for being part of this. I thank everyone also. But I have a challenge for the presenter, so that when you meet with Professor Bogboro, I'm wondering how many women are there on those 14 or 17, subcommittees. And I think without, being, I don't know what word to use, but I think you need more women. You need more women. That should be your first intervention. And I think I have 1 or 2 for you. In fact, I have 1 for you, as you can see today. Okay, engage Professor Muniolua Olani. I'm saying it publicly. You know me, I don't hide my distance. You can see our intervention and even our leadership. She personally called several times, was worried about where is Professor Tijani, and to ensure that this meeting holds despite the technical issues. But more importantly, the intervention she has made is germane to what, and you have also concurred with that. So I've not heard about that many women. I know there are 1 or 2 or 3, but please kindly remember the gender. And speaking about that, you know that the next
sir,
meeting,
before you go, sorry, sir, before you go, because you mentioned the issue of gender, and I don't want to be quarantined.
You don't have
due to this gender. No. You can be genderly quarantined if you have actually offended the women folk. Let me specially thank Emerita or Emeritus Professor Mrs. Adebambo, who joined us from the US.
Okay.
That is
with
a
us.
woman of substance. I think the first emeritus professor of animal science that is a female in Nigeria.
Okay,
And so she joined us, and I think she was just sending a message now. So when you mentioned the issue of women, and she's just coming up, I need to specially recognize her. She is of the agri-thematic group of the Research and Development Standing Committee. Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you very much, Professor Emerita. We thank you, the presenter, and I think you do the needful as usual. Again, we thank each and every one of you. Next week is another date, and by God's grace, devil will be defeated again. I've been up since 3 o'clock, but that is not an excuse. You must be prepared. One thing that the young early career should leave, from this meeting is that you can never be over prepared. And I get that tiny, I usually call it tiny book, but it's not tiny, it's about 240 something pages by Wong and Wong. Wong and Wong, W-O-N-G. They are married couples, master teachers in the state of California. And the title of that book, which is also on online, is the first day of class. And the conclusion, the admonition, is that preparation is key. The second one, preparation. I guess you know the third one. Thank you, and bye-bye for now. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You can unmute.
Bye.
Thank you for your kind words, Prof.
Thank you, Associate Professor Kokola. Get in touch with Professor.
Bye-bye from Benin.
Bye, Prof.
Yes, thank you, Kokola. Good to see you.
Prof, hope you are doing great. How is Benin?
Yes, I'm doing great. Yes, okay. Bye-bye. Great. All right.
Dr. Adamas Ozigbo, thank you very much. And my apologies for not being able to connect yesterday. I sent words to the convener, distinguished Professor Kebukola, and I'm apologizing profusely.
Thank you, sir.
Because as your mentor, I am supposed to be that program that you hosted. We again thank Professor for leadership, for his leadership and support. To our Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters. Thank you, everyone. And,
thank you, sir.
I think we have to sign out now. Bye-bye. To sign out. Oh, this.